This week, On the Couch was filmed at the beautiful new recently refurbished presidential suite at the Four Seasons Hotel, Westcliff, Johannesburg.
My guest today is Amit Shah, the man behind Mystic India, an extravaganza that's coming to Joburg. I believe you've been in Durban already. But it's such a wonderful show, and yet you've got an American accent. And I'm trying to reconcile the American accent with this Mystic India.
Yeah.
How did Mystic India come about?
So, well, I'm actually born and brought up in the U.S., so
That's what I'm
the
saying.
accent is authentic. But my parents are both from India. I was raised in a very culturally, aware environment. I used to attend, religious functions and cultural events and things. So
In
I was
America?
In America, I was never far, estranged from that culture. But being in the U.S., obviously, you have to adapt to those standards as well. So it's kind of a mix of both worlds all the time. And it's the battle of my life. I think a lot of Indian Americans face that same battle, is how do you kind of stay in touch but still stay,
This is Bollywood, though.
This is Bollywood, this show.
So what made you do a Bollywood show?
Well, first, I think it's interesting. I wanted to show authentic Indian culture, and more than just Bollywood. And I think that's the main thing, is what people see is just...
You said 10,000 years in your brochure. Explain the 10,000 years. In other words, you're saying this brings up 10,000 years of culture,
history.
of history. 10,000. We're not talking about 1,000 years, 2,000. This goes beyond that.
It goes beyond that, because
Explain that. Explain
we're
the
talking
story.
about where Indians first started believing in, when religion was first invented, the different religions that we have in India and how diverse it is. So we're talking about starting in a temple. That's how the show first starts. And it's a dated temple where we worship Ganesha, who is the remover of all obstacles, as Indians believe it. And then we kind of take the audience on a full journey and end in a big Bollywood culmination where people kind of see it as where it is today. And it's all these years of history that have paved the path for creating such a magical show on a visual and emotional level. For me, it's a culturally very enhanced show. What I mean by that is it's more than just what people see in film. It's what people would go when they are on the streets in India. It's kind of, I always say, it's the streets of New York meet the streets of Mumbai, and that's kind of where we want to take this.
You come from New York, you come from New Jersey. What's your background? I mean, for you to have the courage to undertake something like this. This is a big show.
I don't have a background technically in dance. I've been dancing since I was 3 years old, but I went to school as a pre-med major, and I was going to pursue medicine.
That's medicine.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I was going to pursue medicine, and I realized that I just had something more, and I use the word more because, not to say it's better or more, but something beyond the medical profession that I had to give back to the world. And I think this was my calling. And people always say, like, how'd you take such a risk? At the time, that all didn't occur to me. It didn't seem, I took little risks, I guess, and it didn't seem this grand or this big. Now, if I look back, I'm like, I don't know if I would do that exactly like that again. But I love what I do, and it's been received so well, so I'm extremely fortunate.
When did you start this? I mean, when you look back.
When I look back to, basically, I graduated college in 2008, and so this company...
In the US, obviously.
In the US, yes. And so I started this company in 2008, launched it as a full, actual registered company in 2009, and then conceived this production in 2011.
So, I mean, this is Indian. Where do the dancers come from? Where do the showmen come from? The acrobats?
They all come from the US.
Are you kidding?
Yeah. Well, the acrobats actually are from India.
Is that a fact? And are they all Indian, or is it a completely mixed culture?
Completely diverse. Completely. And it's funny because people always ask me, like, well, why don't you have a full Indian cast? Well, one, the show's not from India. Okay, the show is from New York.
New York.
Number two, and this kind of relates to another point I could make, is that, Indian Americans don't believe in pursuing the arts as a career. So to find a company of people who are going to travel the world with me for years was very difficult. There's not going to be too many Indian Americans who are, or Indians in fact, who are willing to do that and take that risk. So we had to, at first, say, okay, well, we're opening it up to anyone. And over time, I realized that that was the best thing I could have done, because educating my company and the people who work for me is the first step in educating the world about Indian culture. I have to educate those who are very close to me and around me that want to work with me. So I'm very grateful for that problem to have become, I think, our biggest advantage, is now that diverse
That
cast.
it's diverse, sure.
Absolutely.
But the music's Indian.
The music is
The
all
dance
Indian.
style
The
is
dance is
Indian.
authentically Indian.
So where did you get the technical knowledge? Did you?
I think a lot of it has to do with experience, just growing up and being surrounded by a family who is always involved in community events and cultural events. We learned. I mean, I have two sisters. We all grew up performing for like a spring show or like a Diwali show, which is our kind of Christmas. And so we did that, and I did it in college. I did it in high school. I did it all throughout my life. It's just something we, as Indians, we just sing and dance all the time. It's true, you know.
And where did you first show it? I mean, where did this open?
The first show happened in New Jersey, in my home turf, and it was actually supposed to be a practice run for a show we were doing in Switzerland. And once we did that show, people were like, "This is different. This is something we've never seen." And to me, it was like, "Oh, really?" Because we just did what we felt was right. We never had a plan to make it so big. We never had a plan to tour the world. It was unfathomable at that point.
It's just now a full-time job of yours, obviously.
It's
More than that.
More than full-time.
And the finance? I mean, the finance. This is a huge show. I remember listening to Jackie Mason, who's an American comedian, and he would always say that, at interval, people go outside, typical New Yorkers, the New Yorkers, and said they'll calculate exactly how much he's earning by seeing how many rows there are, how many people, what they pay, and what he gets per night. I mean, this is a big show that requires a lot of finance. How did you get the finance? What gave you the courage to go out and say, this is going to work, I'm going to,
Sure.
I'm going to
Well, when I first started Atma, which is the parent company of this of the show, it was my uncle who pushed me. And he said, I believe in you. And he's a businessman. He said, I believe in you. You have to follow your passion. I think I've learned the greatest lesson of all time is passion is everything. And people say it all the time, but to really believe that and really utilize that on a daily basis is a whole nother. And he gave me my first little bit of cash to start my company. Now, when I had to create the production, that was all self-funded. So that was all from taking money from some of my parents, some that I've saved, some that I've earned, and putting it into this monster which now is self-funded and is growing itself.
And is it an evolving show? I mean,
Evolving. Constantly.
Yeah.
It's new for us every time we do it. Because
you keep adding acts or
always adding, taking out, trying this, trying that, working with South African audience, let's do this different. Whatever it is, it's never the same show twice. It never is.
And in South Africa, you played in Durban. I was going to ask you.
We haven't done. I
you
actually just got in today.
Oh, you only arrived?
5:30 this morning.
So where's your cast? Where's everybody?
They're not even here yet. They're going to be here in 2 days, and we're going to do our first show in Durban, and then we have another 5 shows in Johannesburg. We've never been to Durban before, so it's going to be exciting to be there for the first time. Johannesburg, we have played 3 years ago, but at that point, the name wasn't out there. The brand wasn't recognized. Now it is, and I get a lot of phone calls and emails about this show coming here, so I can't wait.
And your audience, is it diaspora?
Mixed. Completely mixed.
Totally mixed.
You'll look around, and that's what I think is so cool, is even the audience interactions, is everyone's diverse, everyone's talking, and everyone's coming together to watch something, which is art, and that's uniting even the audience. So the whole show is about unity, really, at the end of the day. Yes, Indian culture, yes, Bollywood, yes, music, yes, dance. It's about unity in mankind and unity amongst all of us. And I'm so excited to be in South Africa and share my culture with you guys and have your culture be shared with me. I think absolutely makes
and
this
where
job.
to from here? No, that look. There's a huge Indian community. I think there's a
Yes.
huge entertainment community here, and I've no doubt that the color, the splendor, will go down well. But where do you go to from here? What's the next move?
Well, we are going back
moving this
home.
big ship. How do you do it?
Yes, we're actually just here for these 6 shows. We're going back home after this, and then we have some shows planned for later this year. But right now, we're actually just in the developmental phase. We're actually creating a lot of new content, so we're just rehearsing.
And from a social point of view, do you have time for a social life, or is that just out the question until this thing?
I'm laughing because it's like, you know, growing up, I always got from my parents like, study, work, you know, don't do anything else. And now they're like, where's your social life?
I was going to
I'm
ask
working.
you.
You know, it's hard to do everything. I'm always trying to find that balance. It's kind of my greatest battle, is finding balance between having a personal life, social life, and working the show and this company day in and day out. I feel like I don't work though. I feel like I'm always so happy to be doing what I'm doing. So it always feels social. It always feels like I'm not missing out on anything.
Oh, wonderful.
But
Because if you graduated in 2008, that means you're still a very young man and you still got a lot
29,
ahead of you.
going on 30
29.
this year, and
That's remarkable for a person of that age to do what you're doing and to undertake
Thank you.
a project like this. I think is remarkable.
I think, you
Good
know,
luck. Yeah.
cliche way to end this is say that if you do what you love for real, I mean, if you just give to your work as honestly as you would live your normal life, or give to your loved one or someone that you care about, the world is, you know, waiting to see what you have to offer.
So you've got Mystic India. What music do you listen to when you're not involved in Mystic
The
India?
funny thing is, I actually don't listen to much music. You know, people like my friends will drive me with me in the car and they're like, "You don't want to listen to music?" I'm like, "Nope, I don't." I mean, I do listen to everything. I mean, when I'm in that mood or in that zone, yes, I listen to all kinds of music, Indian, not, you know, American pop music, whatever. But when I'm by myself, most of the time I find myself just being in silence and thinking. That's just who I am.
Amit, we're going to leave it there.
Thank you.
I'm glad you came in from landing on the
Thank you.
aircraft. You look in good shape. You must have had a good flight. I know it's a long flight. It's a very long and testing flight there. But we wish you all the best. I'm
Thank
sure that
you.
it's going to be a great success, particularly in South Africa, where we love these kind of shows.
Thank you so much.
You've been on the couch with me, David Shapiro, and Mystic India man, Amit Shah.